All right, so I hope that video helped clarify a little bit, give you a better understanding of what we're looking for when we're talking about the difference in audiences. I'm gonna have you split into groups of 4 now, and you have a list in front of you. They have a list of demographics like age, gender, identity, cultural, racial and ethnic ties, group affiliations, identity, socioeconomic status, income level, education level, occupation, anything else too. I want you guys to brainstorm, and outside of my list that I'm giving you, think about other things, other characteristics, other demographics, other experiences, things that would affect how somebody's going to respond to your persuasive essay. So I know in the video they gave you an example of the Holocaust, right? So they kind of broke it down. Hopefully you were able to read all of their little notes on there. But what they were talking about was senior citizens around 1940s. They were all old enough and of an age to not only read about the Holocaust in a book, but they actually, a lot of them experienced it. Many of them had brothers, fathers, even sisters in the war effort, maybe fighting, maybe in a factory making ammunitions or tanks or whatever they were doing. But at the time, that was a huge thing for that generation of people. Everybody was involved in the World War II effort in the United States. So if we're talking to a group of people that lived through that, we don't need to explain who the Nazis were. We don't need to explain what one of their concentration camps entailed, right? They know that. They know that there was a terrible time in history. So whatever we're talking about, we can skip a lot of that. Versus the other example they gave. If we're going to talk to a group of 5th graders who are 10 or 11 years old, none of them were alive during World War II. Many of them may or may not have heard a little bit about it from grandparents or even great-grandparents, but this is pretty much new subject material for them. And we're not going to be able to explain it in the same terms that we did for senior citizens that already knew what was going on, right? We're going to need to maybe soften it and make it a little more appropriate for 5th grade, put it in terms they understand, and we're also going to give them a lot of background so that they know who the Nazis are to begin with and why they were considered the enemy of the United States in the war, right? So we have to break those things down. So and don't just think about how to do that. Think about why. Why do we need to break it down, or don't we need to break it down? And this can get touchy, like especially if we're talking about trigger subjects that are really difficult. You know, you don't always know who's sitting in your office or in your audience and who's going to react differently to what you're saying or writing. So we want to take those things into consideration. Don't go to a vegan convention and talk about the benefits of eating red meat 3 times a week. No one there's going to care. No one there's going to start eating meat. And most of them are probably going to be pretty ticked that you came to their space and started spouting off ideas about meat. So think about how you would present something like that. So as we break into groups, let's look over that list of demographics. I want to see you guys talking a lot, giving your feedback. Personal experiences are great. If one thing jumps out on that list to you as being a really important piece of who you are and how you respond to things, share that with your group. Also see if you guys can brainstorm and come up with some other demographics or other factors in just human beings that make a difference in how they respond to things. Think about settings or situations that may change how you would present something. You might give a different speech at church than at school, right? Even that changes everything, and your audience is different in those settings. So let's get together and talk about that. As you guys talk about it, I'll make the rounds and I will be available to talk with you guys. I'm probably gonna be asking you some questions and I want you to really think about this, all right? Let's talk about not only the differences that these demographics create, but also what that means. All right, what impact does it have on your paper and how are you going to adjust to those? Come up with some examples. If I'm talking to a group that has a lot of this in common, I am then going to tailor my writing in this way so that it's more effective. Really think about that as you're discussing these different things. All right, thanks.